We're reading from the Srimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 8, and we're on the chapter Gajendra's Prayers of Surrender, and will be for a little while. This is chapter 3. In this chapter, the prayers of Gajendra, which is the introduction, the king of the elephants are described. It appears that the king of the elephants was formerly a human being known as Indradyumna, and that he learned a prayer to the Supreme Lord. Fortunately, he remembered that prayer and began to chant it to himself. First, he offered his respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because of his awkward position in having been attacked by the crocodile, he expressed his inability to recite prayers nicely. Nonetheless, he tried to chant the mantra and expressed himself in appropriate words as follows. Quote, "The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes, the original person from whom everything has emanated. He is the root cause of the cosmic manifestation, and the entire cosmos rests in him. Yet he is transcendental, for he does everything in relation to the material world through his external energy. He is eternally situated in the spiritual world, in Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan, where he engages in his eternal pastimes. The material world is a product of his external energy or material nature, which works under his direction. It is thus that creation, maintenance, and annihilation take place. The Lord exists at all times. This is extremely difficult for a non-devotee to understand. Although the transcendental Supreme Personality of Godhead is perceivable by everyone, only the pure devotees perceive his presence and activities. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely free from material birth, death, old age, and disease. Indeed, if anyone in this material world takes shelter of him, he also becomes situated in that transcendental position. For the satisfaction of the devotee, paritranaya sadhunam, the Lord appears and exhibits his activities. His appearance, disappearance, and other pastimes are not at all material. One who knows this secret can enter the kingdom of God. In the Lord, all opposing elements are adjusted. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart. He is the controller of everything. He is the witness of all activities, and he is the original source of all living entities. Indeed, all living entities are parts and parcels of him, for he is the origin of Mahavishnu, who is the source of the living entities within this material world. The Lord can observe the activities of our senses, which can work and achieve material results because of his mercy. Although he is the original source of everything, he is untouched by any of his byproducts. In this way, he is like a gold mine, which is the source of gold in ornaments, and yet is different from the ornaments themselves. The Lord is worshipped by the method prescribed in the Pancharatras. He is the source of our knowledge, and he can give us liberation. Therefore, it is our duty to understand him according to the instructions of devotees, in particular the spiritual master. Although for us, the mode of goodness is covered, by following the instructions of saintly persons and the spiritual master, we can be freed from material clutches. The self-effulgent material form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is adored by non-devotees. His impersonal form is adored by those advanced in spiritual knowledge, and his feature as the localized supersoul is appreciated by yogis. But his original form as a person, is understood only by devotees. That Supreme Personality of Godhead is competent to dissipate the darkness of the conditioned soul through his instructions in Bhagavad Gita. He is the ocean of transcendental qualities and can be understood only by liberated persons freed from the bodily concept of life. By his causeless mercy, the Lord can rescue the conditioned soul from the material clutches, enable him to return home back to Godhead, to become his personal associate. Nonetheless, a pure devotee does not aspire to go back to Godhead. He is simply satisfied with executing his service in the material world. A pure devotee does not ask anything from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His only prayer is to be freed from the material conception of life and to be engaged in the Lord's transcendental loving service. Unquote. In this way, the king of the elephants, Gajendra, offered prayers directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead without mistaking him for one of the demigods. None of the demigods came to see him, not even Brahma or Shiva. Rather, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, seated on Garuda, personally appeared before him. Gajendra, by lifting his trunk, offered obeisances to the Lord, and the Lord immediately pulled him from the water along with a crocodile who had captured his leg. Then the Lord killed the crocodile and thus rescued Gajendra. I offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who has brought to light the Srimad Bhāgavatam for everyone in the world, to all the previous acharyas, and to all the assembled devotees. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhabhyevacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. And now we just have a short class today because of other elements in our schedule. And therefore, please ask pinpointed, relevant questions related to the introduction you just heard that will elicit responses that will help to illuminate the meaning of this chapter. That means they better be good.
It was mentioned how Gajendra was calling this Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he did not, Lord Brahma and Shiva did not come. Only like Krishna came in the form of Vishnu. But we also see in the 4th canto when I forgot the name of the sage, when he was Atri Rishi, when he was praying out for the Lord and he didn't know who was it, all of them came. So what is the difference between these two situations?
The main point is that we're, as conscious beings, we're very sensitive to what's going on. You may notice on a conference call, if somebody says one syllable on the call, amongst 200 people, you can tell who it was. If you've ever experienced that, the person just started to say something, someone else said something over them, but you understood who it was, who it started the other conversation, and you said, oh yeah, I know who that was. That was Bhakta such and such. Go ahead. And we can also, by the tone of the voice of a person, we can understand their feeling, because sound carries consciousness, and the ways in which we express ourselves come out in our voices. And then you have the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who Prabhupada mentions, can understand the psychic movements of the living entity. As the super soul within the heart, he's always observing. There are two birds in one tree, the tree being the human body, and then there's the soul who's minute and who's a servitor of the Lord, but who's externally focused. And then there's the super soul, who's always waiting for the attention of the individual soul. And how does one perceive sincerity when you hear somebody speak? Or how does one ascertain who's in need of something, actually? When we were at Govardhan Hill during the festival time, Kartik, there are lots of people who ask for charity. It's part of the social security system in India. And there's a difference between the professionals and somebody who actually needs something. You can tell by their countenances, by their demeanor, by the sound of their voice, and how desperate they are. And we had a story from Kṛṣṇa Prabhu. Tell your story. This is a profound story. And I'll bring it back to related to your question.
Hare Krishna.
He'll hold that super close.
I was going on parikram on Govardhan, on Giriraj, around Giriraj Maharaj, and
You and Kamalakshi, right?
I, Kamalakshi, and Nikunj Nayak Prabhu.
Okay.
So we three were going, and we at Uddhav Kund, we reached Uddhav Kund, and there was one kid, was like 3 to 4 years old. He started following us, and he was asking us to give 5 rupees. So he started walking with us, and he was like, Hare Krishna, 5 rupees de do. Hare Krishna, 5 rupees de do. Until Radha Kund, that is like 3 kilometers, that is more than 30 to 45 minutes. He walked with us, and he was continuously, Hare Krishna, 5 rupees de do, Hare Krishna, 5 rupees de do. And in the middle, he was like, he forgot 5 rupees de do, and he was continuously, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And I didn't want to give because of the scams going on around. So we asked him, would you like something like some from the store directly, some food or something? And he didn't want to take. He wanted 5 rupees only. And so we reached Radhakund, and then somebody else wanted to give him 5 rupees, but he didn't take. He wanted somehow, I don't know, he wanted from us only. And yeah, so yeah, at the end, and then in the middle, he got frustrated and he went back, and we were shocked. What happened? So we turned back, and he watched us turning back, and he came back again and started again following us. And then at the end, we gave up, and we gave him money.
A lot. Because you didn't have any small...
Yeah, I gave him 200 because I didn't have any small change.
We had discussed that, thank you, Krishna Saka, that there's an interaction that goes on between living beings, and we can tell over time by how they approach us, or when we're approaching someone, what's in our heart, it comes out. So one of the main points there that in different sections of the Bhāgavatam are Krishna is responsive. In fact, we may say the whole universe is responsive. Just the way our human bodies are designed, they're responsive to everything we do. The slightest change we have in our diet and our sleep and what we're listening to, and then there's a way that the body responds, the mind responds. The environment's like that also. It's designed to respond to the way we interact with it. And it's all coming from Krishna because he's responsive to everything that we do and very aware, so aware that he can understand from just one syllable what's going on. And so all these different instances have to do with the way, the point is the way we're approaching the Lord. We should be aware that whatever's coming back is coming because of us. Krishna is responding to us as our well-wisher. And therefore, it's our prerogative to tune the way that we approach Krishna. Become aware of how we're approaching Krishna and what we're actually asking for. And it's in the Bhāgavatam, we get the sense from reading Bhāgavatam that I would like to be in perfect resonance with Krishna, because as we know, when we're in resonance with Krishna as a servant and only asking as we heard, that I just want service, I don't want anything else, then we're perfectly tuned. When we want something else, even though we may even hide it from ourselves or ignore the fact that I'm asking for something other than that, and then we get it and we're not satisfied with it, then we may complain. I didn't want that. It's like, no, actually you did. Because Krishna's perfectly responsive. Nature is perfectly responsive. Whatever is happening in the world is happening because of people's level of consciousness, and it's responding to them because the whole cosmic manifestation is a classroom to help us tune our consciousness perfectly in the mood of Krishna, I only want to serve you. And so when people get different results, it's a mode of teaching that comes back like, oh, you asked for something else, be more careful. So the mood of Gajendra, it's very subtle as we read the story, and you can compare it to others and say, well, how come they got this? How come they got that? The overarching point is that whatever they got was exactly what they were asking for. Yeah. Yes, Malini.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Welcome back, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Prabhu, there is another follow-up on that. Recently, I was discussing with someone. They are new to Krishna consciousness, but they were worshipping demigods before. And they heard about Krishna from Bhāgavatam. They heard about his merciful nature and everything. But they were saying, oh, I know, I heard so many things, but still I'm not able to give up my worship to the demigods, as if they were lamenting. So how do we encourage them, and what can we say to them, Prabhu?
You don't have to give up worship of demigods. That's not required. It's just a matter of how you're worshiping them. So the way practically you can worship demigods is you move them a little away from your altar so they're facing your altar. You can put as many demigods as you like. And then first you offer to Krishna, and then you offer, say if you have a image of Ganesh. And Ganesh is not going to want to sit on the same altar with Shishigornitai. So you just move him so he has a vantage point, so he can also be like this. Because yat pada pallava yugam vinayat daya kumbha dvanve pranama sameyesa ganadi raja vignam vihantum alamasya jagatrayasya govindamari purusham dhamaham bhajami. There's a way Brahma describes, this is the way Ganesh likes it. He wants to take the Lord's feet and put them on his head. Well, technically the tumuli, protruding from his elephant head, whatever that means. But the point is, he's holding the Lord's lotus feet on his head as sacred. So if you push him onto your altar at the same level of Gaurnitai, he's going to be very uncomfortable. And the same with all the demigods. Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu. Lord Shiva, he wants to worship Krishna. It's there throughout the Bhāgavatam and Shastras. He's the Vaishnav. He's a Vaishnav. Vaishnav doesn't want to sit immediately on the same level of Krishna or be honored in that way. So if you turn him a little bit, you offer whatever you're offering to Krishna, then you can offer the prasad to the demigods. And as far as my first statement goes, nothing wrong with worshiping demigods. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went here, there, and everywhere. When he traveled in South India, he went to many different temples. And the topmost devotees in Vrindavan, the gopis, they worship Goddess Katyayani. And then we say, well, how were they worshiping? Why were they worshiping? That's the point. If you think that they're separate, then that's a kind of insanity, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that you've lost your intelligence then, because you don't understand the position of the demigods. But the gopis were worshipping Goddess Katyayani and saying, please let us have Krishna as our husband. And Rukmini did the same thing. It was in her family. Before her marriage to Krishna, she went to Goddess Durga and she was praying, but please clear the obstacles so I can have the perfect husband. So if we ask the demigods, please empower me to become a pure devotee and to worship Krishna purely, there's no obstacle. So it's just a matter of proper alignment. So we say it's an offense if you consider the demigods equal to or independent of the name of the Lord Vishnu. It's a matter of understanding Siddhanta. And that's well lined up, pardon me, in the Sri Brahma Samhita, where you find that many of the main entities who are powerful in this universe are mentioned in relationship to how they're worshiping Krishna. They're not left out, but they're there within the pantheon to describe how they're all servants of Krishna. Who is next? And then Bali Mardan. Well, we better take Bali Mardan Prabhu next.
So.
Prabhu, go ahead.
I have already.
Hare Krishna.
I think as Malini brought this point also regarding the demigods. So, and we are discussing the Gajendra moksha. So every demigods has a designated animals, and fortunately, Mother Ganga has the crocodile. So she rides on a white demigoddess. Ganga rides on the crocodile, and it says, Prabhupada in one of the purposes, crocodile is certain death. Means there is no escape. Even a lion she can kill within the water because he's still the king. And in that mood we can understand that how crocodile still, he was fighting for 10,000 years in the water itself. And I believe I was thinking sometime he could have left, let me get another one. But they are so attached to the prey that they don't leave, either they leave their body or they die, or it's such a fighting spirit. So they don't leave, because if you see the psychology, probably it's maybe after that something can quit, right? But crocodile never quit. And Gajendra has to anyway, it is not his choice. He has to escape himself. But by the intervention of the Lord, and we can see the crocodile when we see the death. But I didn't understand why Mother Ganga has the crocodile as a Bahan, means the designated, because we understand Gajanan, which is Lord Ganesh, as you mentioned, he has Chuha, rat, because it's one of the demon and he wants to control. But I don't know about why crocodile is part of Ganga, because Ganga is the liberation giver. So why she is occupying death personified? So
we'll take it as a research question to see if there's anything specific about why she rides a crocodile. Your other points were salient and helpful, and it reminds us of the great struggle for existence. It's very symbolic, is this story about the crocodile, and very difficult to get away. We had a couple over here, and then who had their hand up on this side? Brajaras Bhavana? Okay. 1, 2, 3.
In the introduction, it said that the Lord is worshipped by the Pancharatra system. I was wondering why that system is important and why we follow that in Kali Yuga.
It's an abbreviation of the Vedic system. Vedic system requires a little more runway. You have to start in a pure environment, and we don't have that nowadays. The Garbhadan Samskara is rare. What to speak of an environment that one's born into where one can develop the qualities necessary through the Gurukul system and so forth to come to develop the kind of qualities needed. Therefore, in the present age, Pancharatra, which means that's 5 nights, this idea of when Brahma was sleeping and the Kaitaba demon came and stole the Vedas, the Vedic teachings from his mind. So then Hayagriva came back. Itam nirtirya grishi deva jashavatarar lokan vibhava yasi hamsa jagat patitpan. What is it? Ved. Okay, so Itam nirtirya grishi deva jashavatarar lokan vibhava yasi hamsa jagat patitpan. Lokan vibhava yasi. What's the third line, please? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Huh? Can't hear when everyone says it at once. Dharmam Mahapurusha Pasayuganavritam Chanakalo Yadabhavastriyuga Tasatam. And now what are we talking about? Pancharatra. So there's a way in which Hayagriva, one of the Lord's manifestations, comes to Brahma, and he re-instructs him in all the Vedic literature, but he does so in a typically helpful way. And he consolidates all the teachings into practical form, the Pancharatric system. Pancharatra, 5 nights. So the Vedas are vast, but he said it all in 5 nights. Kind of reminds me of the 64 items of devotional service that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions to Sanatana Goswami. And then he said, okay, out of these 64, there's 5. Stick to these and you're good. And so similarly, the Lord did that. He gave the Pancharatric system, very practical. It's a way of life. It's a lifestyle, and it's a way of directly approaching the Lord, especially through deity worship, and a lifestyle that supports that, so that one can become pure and remember the Lord constantly. Minus the Vedic system, which we don't have access to in this age of Kali for obvious reasons, Prayanal, Payushashabhya, etc. So then you have the Pancharatric system. What we have is the Pancharatric system and the Bhagavat Marg together. Pancharatric is very helpful because when you have deity worship, as I was just feeling this morning, glad to be back and to be here in this arena that we've set up for bhajan. That's where the temple is. It's a place where I have bhajan. And I was thinking, what would this room be without the deities? What do you think? It would be very different. But because we have Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan and Sri Sri Lakshmi Nrsimhadev and so forth, this in the Pancharatra, we're worshiping in the Pancharatric method, then we have something to look forward to and something to put off all the other options here in the material world. Sorry, I'm busy, I have to go see the Lord. If you don't have that Pancharatric, then it's very hard also to keep up the Bhagavat Marg, which is chanting Hare Krishna, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have those 2 tracks going together. The Pancharatric system is mostly the parts that we have are passed down by our very own Narada Muni and come down to us in the padatis that we have. And there are lots of details in the Hari Bhakti Vilas about the Pancharatric system. However, Prabhupada wanted that, even that simplified more. You'll find that when he asked in 1975 for Pradyumna Prabhu to take the Hari Bhakti Vilas, and he wanted him to condense it into about 40 pages, which is a lot of condensing. And then from there, he liked to keep it brief, simple. Nonetheless, that's how it comes down to us, and it's absolutely necessary, the Pancharatric system. And if we have that, plus chanting Hare Krishna and the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam with the speech of teaching it and distributing it, then you have a self-contained, perfect process that'll work. It'll work perfectly in this age of Kali Yuga. Okay? All right. Okay, you're next, and then we have, is that Abai? Abai, you're growing too fast. Every time I see you, I was like, who is that? Okay, Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You were talking about the mood of the prayers. I was trying to understand, like, when we are expressing to the Lord in our own, let's say, words and not repeating the prayers of the devotees just exactly as it is, how do we, like, express emotions also as part of the prayers?
Are you married? Well, you have parents and friends. You may notice that when you converse with them, it matters the mood that you're in. And you may say something to them like, well, like people say all the time, if you go to Ace Hardware to buy a hammer and you go to the counter, they'll say, how are you? In almost a rhetorical way. They're not really expecting a response, right? They're kind of looking at the cash register and how are you? And you say terrible, they go, oh, that's nice. Because nobody's really listening. And this is kind of the mode of the material world. Everyone's ignoring the real point, which is that we're conscious beings and we're lost without the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when there's that sense of I need help, and I'm praying sincerely for help. Even when we're chanting Hare Krishna, we talk about the mood in which we're chanting is extremely important. We'll notice it ourselves. Again, the idea of reciprocation. If we really feel helpless, says Queen Kunti, that if you're a kinchana gochara, you have this sense of, I don't have any other support. I'm not supported by my bank balance or by my supposed good health right now and so forth. All I have is you. That is noticeable. We notice it. It's much more fulfilling because it's real. And the Lord notices it too and also will respond in that way. So again, we're tuning ourselves to that mode of being helpless and calling out to the Lord. Akinchana gochara. Okay? Okay, Abhay.
In the introduction, it mentioned that Gajendra was apologizing that he couldn't say the prayers that nicely, but he knew that Krishna could see his condition and understood what he was going through. So why was it necessary for Gajendra to explain himself?
Well, you could ask that about any aspect of devotional service. Like, Krishna knows my heart, therefore why even go through the trouble of doing it? I've noticed myself when writing something, I can think it through quite. It seems like even while I'm waking up from a dream, I think, I have this piece to write, and it comes through my head what I'm going to write. But when I actually sit down to write it, that's a whole different thing. Trying to express oneself to the Lord, articulating what's actually in one's heart is important. It's important for us to purify ourselves. There's a way in which Prahlad Maharaj expresses this, that this is for our own purification. Naitan vihaya kripana. I'm sorry, how does that verse go? Naitan manas. Naivatmana prabhurayam nijalabha purno manam jananda vidusa karuno vranite yad yachano bhagavate viditita manam tachchatmane pratimukasya yata mukashri. There's a sense of, I articulate it for my own purification, because when I actually do something for the Lord, and doing something, you actually express it. Again, if you have a relationship, say, with your parents, and you love your parents, and say they're away somewhere, and they come home and the house is a mess, and they say, well, why is the house a mess? You could have cleaned it up. They say, well, yeah, I was really thinking about it, and I really love you, and I thought about it a lot. There's a difference between that and when you actually clean the house, and then you don't have to say anything. They walk in and everything's clean. And expressing oneself to the Lord, articulating what's in one's heart, and learning that way of actually bringing it out is something very important for our own purification. It's something that Radhika Raman Prabhu often brings out when he talks about prayer. He mentions that when he was a child, and he was learning the Bhāgavatam from his parents, and he said the story parts were all very fascinating. But when the prayers would start, he said he would think, oh no, not this again, more prayers. But then he started appreciating that it's the way we come to know what bhakti is, through the prayers of the devotees. When they say what they're feeling. And that's a kind of a manifestation of the feeling that one has, is when you actually say it to somebody. You say it to the Lord and you express it. And we may even be surprised what we say, because the Lord empowers us to speak when we're sincere. That's something Prahlad also says. Tasmada ham vikata viklaka ishvarasya sarvatmana mahigranami yata manisham nicho jaya gunavisarga manu pravishta puyete yena hipuman anuvarnitena. He said that it's for my own purification. I'm saying this out loud to you, my Lord, even though I'm totally unqualified. That's the first part, as you know very well, Abhay, right? Of Prahlad's prayers. He's saying, who am I? I can't say any prayers. I'm not like these demigods. They have perfect pronunciation of Sanskrit, and they're really smart, and I'm just a kid. So what am I going to do? And then he concludes, tasmat, therefore, because it's for my own purification, and therefore, because the Lord accepted Gajendra, he says that in his prayers, that the Lord, even though Gajendra's prayers were imperfect, because he articulated them, the Lord appreciated it so much. Think of parents again and their children. If a child comes up, I'll give you an example. My mother and me had a very close relationship with my mother. I was in whatever grade you're in when you learn to write. Maybe it's first grade? Does anybody know? It's first grade? So I just learned to write. And I'd come home, my mother was out, and I wanted to go see my friend Lance. So I wrote on a piece of paper, I at Lance. And I left it for my mother. That was for her. She saved it until she passed away. I found it in a box. But she was like, well, look what he wrote. He wrote I at Lance. It's his first note. And it was imperfect. The grammar wasn't right. But she was so touched that I took the trouble to write it to her. That was one thing. If you leave somebody a note, they really appreciate it. And what to speak of, if it's from somebody that you love and they try to express themselves but they don't do it perfectly, you might even like it more because it's not all polished up and therefore somebody's thinking, listen to this. They're just saying from their heart. And so with Gajendra, he's getting real. In fact, when anybody speaks and they start to get vulnerable and they're speaking from their heart, everybody's, wait a minute. They're actually going to say something about themselves that they don't say to other people or that it maybe is secret or private. That's when everybody listens. And that's what the Lord's listening for too. And so to express it is very important because we can. And it's one of the main ways that we even know our own capability in bhakti is to try to express it. For instance, I'm really going on about this, but when we write a Vyasa Puja offering to our spiritual master, Prabhupada said, one of my godbrothers, a senior godbrother told me, Prabhupada said this is a kind of test of the disciple. It's like, where are you at right now? If you write it out and you express it, the spiritual master can read it and say, oh, I can see the level of consciousness of this person. And if they don't do it at all, then it's like, where are they? So it's the same way with prayer. In the same way, this whole point of Gajendra's prayers is so important that we should say it. And we try to express it in the best way we possibly can, sincerely from our heart. And that's what Gajendra says. He said, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not very good at this, but I'm going to really try. Okay, we have time for a couple more. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for your wonderful class. My question was regarding, in the purport says, to enable one to achieve perfection, Krishna gives one the chance to remember him again. And I feel like for me, in retrospect, I understand that, oh, that was a chance for me to remember Krishna. But in the moment itself, my desire for what I think it's right comes out instead. So how do we understand that we're in the moment, that this is the moment that I should be remembering Krishna, but not that this is the moment that I should be, asking for what I think is correct?
Asking for what?
What I think is supposed to happen.
It's a matter of practice. We practice devotional service to refine what we ask for. And that comes from purification through our own experience. When we ask for something that is not selfless, then we don't feel satisfied. And we'll notice it. Krishna is very expert at helping us in that way. So the Bhagavatam's mood is, okay, we understand you have other desires. So at least ask Krishna for them, and you're going to get the feedback in such a way that it's going to help you in the long run. At least ask Krishna. Don't go somewhere else. Just stay in there and ask Krishna. And Krishna knows what's in our best interest. Satyam dishati artita artitam rinam naivartato yat punarartito yata soyam vidate bhajatam anichatam ichapi dhanam nijapada palavam. Says the fifth canto, forget who says this verse, maybe look it up. Satyam dishati artito nrinam. Not you don't have to, somebody else, you can listen. And so this verse says that when, it must be Krishna speaking, he says, when somebody asks me for something material, he said, I'll fulfill their desire, but I'll do it in such a way that they don't want it anymore. And instead, I'll replace it with my devotional service where they'll actually be satisfied. So we have to be brave enough to know that and to go ahead and ask Krishna, be willing to be purified. So through our experience, we will come to know and feel when we practice devotional service, meaning practice chanting with sincerity and offering prayers with sincerity, we become refined in our desires. And everything requires refinement in this world in order to appreciate it. Sometimes people will look at art or hear music and they don't know what they're listening to, so they can't appreciate it. In devotional service, we're becoming more and more refined to appreciate pure devotional service. That I only want the pure thing. This is a refined taste. And in the beginning, we may not have a refined taste. We say, I want what I want. And Bhagavatam says, okay, ask Krishna. He'll help purify you of your desire and what you're asking for. And when we see for ourselves that I only want Krishna, that's gold. Even if we can't do it, if we have that sense that here's actually what I really want. I know my self-interest is to ask Krishna, I only want your service. I don't want anything else. It was mentioned here, the devotee doesn't even want to go back to Godhead. It doesn't even want to mention that. Krishna, I don't, and it's something Kapila Dev says in the third canto. It's that the devotee doesn't ask for any kind of liberation. Not interested in that. Only interest is in this, I want to serve you, Krishna. How do you want to be served? And the whole discussion, what's my rasa? It's not, what I want. It's Krishna, how would you like me to serve you? And then the more we have that question in our mind and the more we want to come towards that, the more Krishna is very helpful in empowering us to know how to, tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. When we're trying for that, he'll refine our intelligence so much that we'll come to the point of saying, I only want Krishna, nothing else. And then it becomes our life. Was any of that helpful?
That was perfect. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Okay. Time for maybe, yes.
The verse comes from the prayers from the residents in Jambudvip, and it's the demigods who are saying this.
The demigods are saying this. Yes. Satyam dishatyartitam artito nirnam naivartato yat punar artita yuta Swayam vidate bhajatam anichatam isha pitanam nijapada pallavam. And the translation you'll love. The Supreme Personality of God fulfills the material desires of a devotee who approaches him with such motives, but he does not bestow benedictions upon the devotee that will cause him to demand more benedictions again. However, the Lord willingly gives the devotee shelter at his own lotus feet, even though such a person does not aspire for it. And that shelter satisfies all his desires. That is the Supreme Personality's special mercy. We're dealing with a person who's all-loving, he's also all-knowing, and so there's no hiding in this relationship with Krishna. And we want that. We don't want artifice. We don't want something artificial in our lives. We want a real relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then we'll also resonate with pure devotees. When we resonate with pure devotees, oh, I see how they are. I would like to be like that also. And then we think, how can I Can I do something for you? How can I be around you more? How can I serve more? This is the life of devotional service. We're coming to this point of complete resonance with service to Krishna. Yes.
Welcome back from the spiritual planet.
Thank you.
Maharaj, I loved your statement about the whole world is a classroom to fine-tune your consciousness. Was there more that you meant besides chanting, devotional services to purify and elevate your consciousness by that statement?
Everything about the world is meant to refine us so that we come to that point of our eternal our highest self-interest, which is to serve Krishna. And we get feedback from the environment. And at first, when we're materially self-centered, we think we are our bodies, it may seem inconvenient, the things that are happening to us. Even hell. Bhāgavatam talks about hell and suffering, which is hellish. We suffer because of our attachment to the material body and the material world. It's what causes our suffering, is inordinate attachment to things that aren't real. The material world's not real. It's here today, gone tomorrow. So to be attached to it is silly. And so there's a way in which Krishna wants everyone to be happy and to come back to their real self-interest. And so the whole material world's rigged. The whole thing's rigged. And it's rigged in such a way that whatever you touch here, you think, I'll take that. It looks like a good idea at first, but then you find out that because I'm trying to grab something that's not mine or that's here today, gone tomorrow, this asat trishna, thirst for the material world, this is what's causing my suffering. And then when we get proper information, Maya Mugda Jivana Hiswata Krishna Gyan, Jiveri Krishna Koila Krishna Veda Puran, we can get information from Bhāgavatam, the difference between reality and illusion. That's helpful, isn't it? It's like, I've seen before animals, and there's a resemblance in human society also, but animals sometimes, they get fascinated by a reflection of themselves. Birds I've seen. When they see a reflection of themselves in a mirror, or likely it's a window, like you hear this noise, you're sitting there writing or reading, and all of a sudden you hear bang, bang. And you go look, and there's a bird. And he sees a bird in the reflection of the window, and he's smashing into it. And it's like, there's no bird in there, you know that? And that's why, they call them bird-brained, because they get enamored of the wrong thing. And you're like, little bird, would you stop hurting yourself? And that's the way Krishna sees us in our situation in the material world, is we're disoriented. He's trying to help us in all aspects of the world. I was saying about hellish conditions and suffering. Someone may say, well, why is there that? It's purifying. When you have intense suffering in the material world, although we all feel compassion for those who are suffering and we don't like to suffer, it purifies us. It's like when you're sick, when you come out of being ill and you realize what a healthy condition feels like, you know the difference between your healthy condition and unhealthy condition. So the whole material world is an opportunity for us to again, this is like the fourth time I've said it, so I hope it's not sounding redundant, but to tune ourselves, to tune our consciousness. Like you tune a radio, and you're like, no, not there yet. It's way too hard. Oh, I don't want to listen to that. And then you come back, oh, that's it. That's what I want to listen to. And everything in this world is meant to tune us to the point where I only want one thing, service to Krishna. And when we have that, Bhāgavatam says, Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktiradhoksaje ahaituki apratiyata yayatma suprasid. Then you'll be happy. That's the only way to be happy, because that's who we are. And it's unlimited happiness. It's not the fake happiness of the material world where there's something dangled and you go for it and then Next thing you know, another fake out. You didn't actually experience any happiness. So we have time for last question. No last question. Okay. Sanjana?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So I had this question for a while. So I wanted to understand what causes our downfall from this path. Like, as far as I understand it so far, it's like it's a feedback loop. The more I chant, the more I associate with devotees, the more I listen and hear about Krishna Leela, I'm receiving more of Krishna's grace and mercy, and it makes me want to do more. But what possibly can I do awfully that makes me fall down from this path?
Stop hearing about Krishna. Instead of, it's not some grandiose thing. It's those little moments where you have the opportunity to chant or not chant. It may seem like an inconsequential thing, but that's where it happens. we have this free will what we're gonna do with our life. So this is why we have association, because it's not given that we can stay on track unless we surround ourselves with the stimuli that help us to keep on the track. Plus, we nail everything down. We make vows, initiation vows. We come in and say, "I'm doing this," and everyone says, "Yay!" And then they say, "When are you going to do it?" Every morning, and you have to keep that up over a lifetime. And if you happen to stray from that, then you have to have support so you can come back to it. Because we're tiny, we're in an ocean, we're getting pummeled basically by the material nature. So we got to put ourselves in a position so that we can stay on it. So when you're in a right state of consciousness, just like when you sign a document before you're not in the right state of consciousness, you say, it says legally, right, I such and such am in sound mind. So I'm signing this, I know what I'm doing. Take those opportunities when you have sound mind and you know what you're doing to make the right choice. Keep chanting Hare Krishna. And if you happen to forget, then you should be around devotees who remind you, say, what are you doing? How come you didn't show up? Where were you? Or they come to your house and say, here's some Mahaprasadam, would you get back with the program, please? So we need that. So we should, while we're in sound mind and body, we should sign up for everything that we're capable of signing up for to stay in the program. There's the program, and then there's working the program. That's our part. Because if you don't work the program, as they say, I've heard in recovery programs, that it doesn't work. You have to work it. Thank you very much, everybody. It's heartfelt coming back here to this oasis. For us, I could speak for Nirkul also, that's just everywhere we go is blissful, but this is where our heart is eternally with all of you. And I couldn't be more satisfied and happy. I feel like I'm in a dream where somehow or other I'm winning and everything's going right when I come here, just by seeing all of you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for keeping the transcendental vibration going, for praying, for pure devotional service, and for giving it to so many other people. It's the only thing that'll help the world is if people have some intervention of higher knowledge of themselves, and it's totally available. It's totally possible to change the world by mass distribution of Krishna consciousness. Don't think that the upheavals that go on in the world, and there'll be plenty of them, and there always have, can't be overcome by Krishna consciousness. From this one little place right here, we can change the world. So we should work together as we're doing, but try to increase a lot more, and we should beat Mayapur. And I want a chart on the wall, a poster, where we are and how we're going to do it. Okay? Say yes. Need a verbal yes. Thank you.